But we're going to have a discussion next that will be focusing on spotting the next big thing.
Absolutely. Get comfortable, get excited, make sure that you take notes and listen carefully. For this session, I have the pleasure of inviting Dimitri, Sedashev, investment managers at Cherry Ventures, and Yanis Vavere, co-founder and CEO of Trace Space.
Hello, folks.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us at TechChill. It's no coincidence that we're both here on stage. If you saw some of the press today, we announced the recent seed round that Trace Space raised with Cherry Ventures leading it. So we thought, exactly. And so we wanted to give you a bit of a flavor of the fundraising process, both from an entrepreneur perspective and from an investor perspective. So we're going to have a little fireside chat and ask, I guess, questions from both sides of the table. But to kick things off, a little bit about Cherry Ventures. We are a pan-European early-stage VC. We also announced this week that we secured a new fund of 500 million euros to deploy into early-stage startups all across Europe.
Good $500 million.
This is a busy week for the press. So we've been around for 10 years, and we were originally set up by the early Zalando exec team, who obviously stayed with Zalando all the way through to the IPO, and they wanted to create a VC that they wish they had when they were building Zalando. And so really the idea was to create a really founder-first, founder-friendly VC that thinks about upside. I mean, you can think about VC back then, it was very much more Goldman Sachs rather than Silicon Valley. And we wanted to change that, or at least Christy and Philip wanted to change that. So 10 years on, we're still very much on that mission to be that ideal partner for early-stage founders, to get them to the best possible Series A and B and beyond, and take them global. But yes, enough about me and Cherry. Yanis, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and what are you building?
Yes, of course. So, hello, everyone. I can't see you because of the lights, but I'm sure you're there somewhere. Kidding. So, I'm Yanis. I'm the CEO at Trace Space. But a little bit about me. So, I actually did a medical physics background about 10 years ago. So, a bachelor, and I did a medical device as my bachelor thesis. And that's how I got into product development. And then my co-founder, Carlos, and I, we were working on this project for the Latvian State Revenue Service. And we did need a requirements management tool. And that tool was called JAMA Software. I was hired as their first European employee. And I opened their Amsterdam operations in 2016. Together their founding team, and so I fell in love with the space. And then, for those of you who don't know, there is a very successful Latvian company called Localize, and myself, Mikos, and some other folks that are here in the audience were actually the core executive team starting from 2020 when they were still bootstrapped, so the first 25 employees. And we grew the team and the company through 2 funding rounds, investment by CRV. At some point I had more than 100 people reporting to me, and that was a bit much. But and then we started Trace Space with Mikos 2 years ago and raised the pre-seed. And here we are today.
Cool.
Talking to Dimitri.
So, briefly, just describe what is Trace Space? What is the problem you're solving?
Yeah, so Trace Space is a new type of requirements management tool, but maybe to just take a step back about what is requirements management. So, in automotive and semiconductor and some other complex disciplines, engineers write specification documents to actually align on what the device is going to do in the R&D process. And these specification documents, due to software, due to the amount of complexity, due to autonomy, has become so big and that's very, very hard to manage, and so that you need to add more and more engineers, and you still can't keep track of everything that's going on in the R&D process. And so at TraceSpace, we are building an AI native requirements management tool that is actually helping those engineers understand the complexity, break down silos, and accelerate the development process. And this is badly, badly needed, because you see German automotive doing layoffs, you see even GM just stopped their cruise development, because these modern devices are so complex and so hard to build that they can't do it with these old tools and processes. And so that's why we are building TraceSpace, to actually reignite the Western manufacturing.
And what was the light bulb moment? Like, when did you wake up one day, realize this needs to be done? I know you were the top salesman at Jammer, which was the existing platform in this space. But how did you go from there to localize and then TraceSpace?
So the story is that I was always excited about talking to these systems engineers that build these amazing products, but it was extremely frustrating how little innovation there was in this industry. So all this PTC, Dassault, IBM, they just extracting money from these companies, from these engineers, but they're not really innovating. And when I joined Localize, I saw that you actually can do software in a much better way. And then we were always talking with Mikos that we should do our own thing. And Carlos was always talking about, how we could do something from the engineering perspective. And then when I think we were implementing GPT-2 or trialing it for translations in Localize, and I saw this sort of things coming together. So engineering specification is a document it's a linguistic thing, and you can actually apply AI really well on that. And then Carlos came up with a really good architecture. And so yeah, the moment that AI hype started going up, we realized that actually with modern architecture, with AI, with all the things that we've learned, we could actually help real engineering, people that build products. And that's when we really kicked it off, and haven't looked back, so it's good.
So one thing we discussed before is kind of the storytelling aspect and positioning TraceSpace as a new kind of global disruptor in this space. Sort of what's been the biggest challenge for you guys? Has it been more on the technical side, building a complex product like this from the ground up, adding AI, building brand new infrastructure, or is it actually positioning the product, the storytelling side? Because I know both sides have been a journey for you guys.
Well, this journey is not for everyone. I can tell you that. You're going after a legacy industry with the state-of-the-art products are built in the 90s, and they are deeply entrenched. So not only you have to be able to build an amazing product that's much better than they have today, and that takes time. So we've been building for 2 years, and we are almost there, but not quite there yet. So it's close. We know that there's a problem. We know what to build, but it just takes time to build. There's no shortcuts, no workarounds. You go to the engineering, to our design partners like Rivian or Lucid Motors, and you ask them, so can you implement it? And they're like, yeah, I love this stuff that you built, but what about this other thing? And we're like, yeah, but that's on the roadmap. And they're like, okay, then go back to work. And they're like, okay. And so that's tough, but it's exciting, but just long. And the other part is being able to tell that story, because they are not a very imaginative people. So you have to be able to show them how the things that can be done in a better way. And it's very complex product, deeply into the engineering life cycle. So you actually have to be world-class in both, in the product and ability to sell the story and the product and figuring out who needs it.
Cool. Well, I'm sure you have some questions for me as well. I'm sure there are entrepreneurs out there who want to know what it looks like from a fundraising investor standpoint, how to approach founders like yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we've loved the past few months already working with you, and the whole process was amazing. But one thing that, I mean, would be interesting, I think, for the audience is like, what does it actually mean to be a top-tier fund in the seed stage in Europe? And how do you see yourselves? How do you maintain that reputation? And what's your plan going forward?
Yes, I think I can actually answer this question very easily. It's if founders don't think if founders think we're a top-tier fund, then we are a top-tier fund. Because ultimately, it's the founder's opinion that matters the most in the market. If founders have amazing things to say about us, if they like working with us, if they get access to the next best investors in the next funding rounds, then we're doing something right. I mean, we historically have invested in pre-seed and seed. We now have companies that are, Series C level, and the partners that were on the board are still being asked by the founders to still be on the board. And that means, that's just the signal that means that we're doing something right. And reputation takes years to build. It's very, very quick to be destroyed. So every day we think about, how much value can we maximize for our founders? What intros can we do? What non-investment team can we bring in to add additional value to the portfolio companies? It's hard work every day. I mean, it even comes down to our investment strategy. So even though we invest at pre-seed, seed, and a little bit in Series A, we're not a spray and pray fund. We only make 10 to 12 investments per year, and we just raised 500 million. So, we are, very selective, which means each partner on the team only makes 1 to 2 investments per year. So every company we invest in gets maximum focus, and we stand by that investment strategy. So yeah, it's a complicated question, but I think it's an easy answer. If founders think we're top tier, then we are top tier.
But are there any specific things that what's a good conversation for you versus a bad conversation for the first one that you do with a new team that you met?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we look at the most is founder market fit, which we can speak to companies at pre-seed and seed, and product market fit might not still be there, but founder market fit should be fairly obvious, or there needs to be a really strong burning reason why the founder is building this product for this particular market. And for us, if you take the example of the first call, for us, the story is really important, right? I mean, for the founder, it's about telling the story. For the VC, it's to then go away and to check if that story makes sense or if it checks out. And if it checks out well enough, then we write a check. And then obviously there's the usual stuff that you can read on the internet, market size. But actually, on market size, we start to look at it a bit differently now. We think that, you can look at the European market, for example. You can say, I'm just going to sell to Germany, I'm just going to sell to France, I'm just going to sell to Italy. And on Excel, those look like big markets. But actually, in reality, when you start going and selling to those countries or those different segments within those countries, actually the time to market is very slow. So the bigger you are in terms of your ambitions of going global earlier on, and this is something that you guys are feel very strongly about, the better it is as well for us. So it's we try to assess the ambitions of the founder on the first call as well, plus the story, plus the founder profiles. And then, because we make so few investments per year, every investment we do, we really do geek out on the topic. I mean, I had no idea what requirements management was before I met these guys. And now I'm wow, this is unbelievable. I can talk about it, for another 15 minutes. And I think that also really helps founders. Founders love it when VCs geek out on their topic, on their product, because, you are pouring your life and energy and money sometimes into the product, and you want to see investors who are getting really excited about it and doing their homework. And so this is something we also do in all our investment processes.
But so how did you hear about us, actually?
Yeah, so I came across your profile on LinkedIn. I reached out last summer. Then you told me to go away, come back later, and I was like, okay. And then come November, I I reached out to you again, and we had a call set up. And at the same time, the London partner at Cherry, who I work with, she got the intro from one of your previous investors who did the pre-seed round. Right. And we basically, but from both sides, got to you guys. And yeah, then we started doing our homework, which led to the investment.
Yeah, and what was the moment when you realized that this is a good fit for you and the rest of the team?
Yeah, so at Cherry, we've wrote a letter to European founders following the announcement of our new fund that we want to fund the first trillion-dollar company in Europe. And so with that involves, the founders that want to build a trillion-dollar business need to have massive global ambitions from day one. And it was very clear that you guys are already wanting to sell to Silicon Valley. You guys want to move there at some point, right? And so that was that checked out. And then we started looking deeper into the market, and this is where we did our homework. We were like, okay, this market has got really old platforms that are decades old, that are pretending to run AI on them, and there's a massive opportunity for disruption. And then we did our calls. We spoke to a couple of manufacturers, and we realized they're paying millions and millions of dollars for these old tools, and there's still no one doing this, in the new age of AI and et cetera. And I think that's when we realized the pain points are real. The story that you sold us actually is real. And then, it's a case of then running towards the finishing line. But what we've found really, really exciting about you guys is that you want to build global, but you actually also want to build for Latvia. Yeah. And we feel very strongly here at Cherry that European founders should be building global, go big, sell to the US, sell to Canada, sell to all the other markets, because that's how wealth is going to come back to Europe. It's not going to be through bureaucrats or politicians. It's going to be through people disrupting and building amazing, big, huge companies and bringing that wealth back to Europe over the next decade, because things have changed, right? Things have changed. You can build companies, you can build tech from nothing anymore, from pretty much from nothing, and you can sell it to anyone. We've got all the technology to do it. It's just a case of going out there and doing it, because there's enough money to fund all the impressive founders out there who want to do this. So yeah, actually, going back to you, what are your ambitions around the Latvia story? You want to go global, you want to sell big, but how do you think about bringing this back to Latvia?
So, actually, it goes back actually quite a few years now, this idea that I've had. So, already back in, I think around 2019, 2018, I was thinking about what to do with my life, sort of long term. I was living in Amsterdam, selling Java software, traveling all over Europe, seeing all these amazing companies, but then I always thought, well, how could I bring this knowledge that I'm getting back to Latvia? And I wrote a memo for myself that I'm going to help scale the first real Latvian B2B company. And then I spoke to Mikos at the end of 2019, and he was telling me these things about Localize, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of good. What is that? And so I got in touch with the founders. And they had a really, really good feel about how they are thinking about what they're doing, and so that's when I joined. Where my first initial localized team was all based out of Riga in the office in Old Town, and I just felt like I'm in the right place at the right time. I was passing everything I learned to the whole team. Not only to my sales team, but I was just sharing everywhere where I could. And then the same thing happened again when we raised the pre-seed with TraceSpace. We are trying to bring the best VCs in, share our knowledge, share how we raise, what our learnings are to everyone here. Because, and that's not only talking about Latvia specifically, it's about the Baltics, about Europe in general. The only way out from the place we are in right now is innovation, And the best way is tech innovation, because you can actually build global products from nothing, from just a few people, an idea, and writing some code. And so that's, I feel passionately and strongly about Europe in general, but there is a sort of a depressing feeling right now about it. And even though we plan to sell, especially at the beginning in US, and we are traveling to US a lot, sparking innovation is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, and also getting to engage with these European manufacturers about new ways of doing things, about applying AI to engineering. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Actually, there are probably some founders and entrepreneurs in the audience. Like, going back to the storytelling, I know you had probably one of the reasons why you told me to go away last summer was because of the story that you were still working on.
Yeah.
Can you go and explain a little bit about sort of how did you work on the story, and what were some of the challenges that you and your co-founders faced during that?
I love this question because when I tell people about our fundraise, it was done in almost like a week and like 8 days or so, and it seems easy, right? You pull the trigger on the raise, and a week later you have some term sheets, and just to go. It sounds like few meetings, but actually it was an incredible pain to get there. So we thought for 14 months, we thought we're going to be raising 3 times, and this was our first real raise, but it was the 4th time we were preparing for a raise. And every time we felt like the story was not clicking, and it wasn't landing with people. We did some friendly chats, and it was just they're not resonating, and they were not engaging further. And we actually we took a storytelling coach for 6 months, and we learned the basics of public speaking even, and breathing and all kinds of other things. And then when we put the story together, now we know what we're building. We know there's a real problem, but now we can tell that story. And I think that's a very important part of any entrepreneurial and VC journey, is actually being able to tell your story in a compelling and engaging way. And that was there was lots of frustration, and Mikos can tell you like how many times he had to rework our deck with our new story until we found the right abstraction layer, because we are also solving this extremely complex problem, which is hard to grasp, and we need to get it right. So it was quite a process.
Yeah, I think, for your type of product, selling to enterprise sometimes makes investors scared, because long sales cycles, endless amounts of bureaucracy and POCs and demos and so on. So the go-to-market sometimes scares some VCs off, but I actually personally love the enterprise sales cycle, because that's where you get the big $1 million contracts. And so what, for me, was really interesting was actually you've sold to these companies before. You were the top salesperson doing this at an old company. Then we looked at your go-to-market, you gave spot-on answers on go-to-market. So, even when VCs have some questions and concerns around a certain aspect of your product, whether it's go-to-market, product, team, etc., as long as you have sort of bulletproof answers to give back, then it sort of becomes a lot easier as well.
Well, it's easier to tell that story, but also it's easier for us. So, for example, about 14 months ago, our story was like, we're going to be doing a little bit of bottoms-up sales to engineers, and then we're going to sell this to these mid-market companies and also do enterprise at the same time. And first, you can't tell that story in a logical, concise, clear way, but you also... The VCs are like, so what are you going to do exactly? Are you going to sell to these mid-market engineers, or are you going to do enterprise? So that's another thing. And then your focus is diluted as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson even, because you are thinking okay, so what am I doing? And now getting that story right also helps you actually do the right things, because now we know we're focusing on enterprise. We need to get this type of technical buyer engaged. We need to get this type of economical buyer engaged in this whole conversation, and we need to figure out what kind of things they like to attend, where to get them, where to meet them, where to invite them to. And so it's actually like you just solve like a logical chain of things, and you have a very clear focus, not only in your story, but also in your actions. And that's, I think, huge part of potential success is now we have enough capital to build this product, but we also have a very clear idea of how to sell it and whom to sell it to and who has this problem. And so it's just, it de-risks a lot. And only if it doesn't work, then you change it. But now you change it not in a sort of chaotic way, but you actually have tried a very specific
yeah,
way.
I think being clear on the direction you want to go to, whether it's, let's say, go to market, for example, you have a clear idea of where you want to go, it solves your next decisions quite quickly, because you're like, okay, we're selling to these people at this level. That means our marketing needs to be like this. That means we need to hire these types of profiles, these types of salespeople. It suddenly becomes a lot clearer. I think if you came to us with your previous go-to-market strategy, we probably would have had more questions there. But okay, cool.
Yeah, I have one more. Maybe overall, like there is a lot of talk about European resilience. So, and you just raised a $500 million fund. So how do you see the next few years in Europe developing, and what do you think that people should be thinking about?
Yeah, so at Cherry, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we want to keep backing Europe. We want Europe to build for the world. We want, like, there is so much talent here, and we at Cherry have seen this over the last 10 plus years, that there is talent. There is enough ambition for VCs to exist and pour more money into Europe, but we'd like to see more of that ambition across more ecosystems, across more communities, across other parts of Europe. We don't want everything just to be in London, Berlin, and Paris. We want more like superstar founders and superstar companies breaking out and going global very quickly. And I think AI is really allowing this to happen. I mean, we're seeing insane growth, like from some AI companies that have just gone completely viral, that we thought growth like this couldn't exist. And so we're bullish on Europe. We're bullish on Europe. And at the same time, if you look at from an investor perspective, how expensive things are getting in Silicon Valley, it becomes, you know, from a financial perspective, from a financial returns perspective, you know, I'm sure some American VCs out there are maybe asking the questions like, actually, does it make sense to, you know, invest in 15 million, you know, rounds and pre-seed in Silicon Valley, or should we actually start looking at investing in Europe? Because again, there is so much talent. And at Cherry, we just hope that the really successful founders in our portfolio can inspire the next generation, the next wave of founders to come in. And it's not just from Cherry's portfolio, it's from the other VCs in Europe, like superstar founders coming through those companies, through those VCs. We want them to inspire and show founders across Europe, like, it can be done. It can be done, and it can be done quickly. Just need to have the ambition, the big dream.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like you say, there's, you know, a lot of resources out there, a lot of founders like Yanis who will have stories to tell you, like how they got it right up until, you know, and wrong as well, up until now. And yeah, it's an interesting journey for founders to go on, and we want to continue backing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the next 10 years together.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Hope this was useful for someone.